Hi, and welcome to another ISOOSI Tuesday, our roundtable discussion about search, social, and all things marketing. I'm Carlos Fernandez, president of ISOOSI, and we've got some regular faces for you today. Everybody will know Amon Jones, ISOOSI's resident expert on all things marketing and search. We have Barry Moran, we have Bill Slawski, and we have Doc Sheldon. And I'm going to let everybody give a brief introduction. But thank you all for joining us for another ISOOSI Tuesday, and we're going to be talking about keeping up with the Googles, about all the recent developments that have been happening with Google in terms of Google Pigeon, the whole kind of thing with the SSL, secure, and lots of other things, and the lack of the Penguin update. So we've got a lot of things to discuss, but I'm going to let everybody give a brief introduction. Amon, do you want to kick it off?
Sure, Amon Johns, regular old fart. I'm here every week. If you don't know me by now, you haven't been watching. Barry.
Barry?
Barry Moran, Digital Director of Boundary Communications. Been about for a while, and yeah, I've been on ISOOSI quite a few times and love it, so cheers.
Bill?
Hello everybody, Bill Slawski from GoFish Digital and SEO by the Sea. I'm looking forward to this discussion. I miss the days when Google thought they would share most of their updates with us on one of their blogs, and I wish they did that some more, even though it ended up with a lot of people trying to figure out what those updates actually were. I don't like the name Pigeon. I attempted to petition Danny Sullivan for a change. He said it's too late. I sort of felt that way when Webmaster World used to take it upon themselves and name all the Google dances. Like, how come they get to have the fun? So, if I can come up with a better name, I think Panda had some influence in Pigeon anyway, so maybe we can call it something like Panda Local.
Okay, Doc, do you want to give a brief intro?
Hi, Doc Sheldon here. I'm U.S. based. I've got intrinsic value SEO and top shelf copy, and so as soon as we get ready for our upcoming relaunch, I'll be editing on the Meld. I, like Bill, do not like the Pigeon. The name makes me feel like a statue in the park under a Google perch. If they really wanted to go with something that started with P, I would have suggested pterodactyl.
Hey, nice.
Cool. So I don't know if we just 1 minute. I don't know if you're still muted, Barry, or 1 minute.
No, I'm good.
All right, good. So yeah, we've got a lot of things to discuss. I don't know if we want to start with the Pigeon. Now, did they come up with the name, Bill? Did they come up with the name Search Engine Land?
Search Engine Land did, yes.
Right.
In the blog post, they said.
I thought we were going to stick with black and white animals. I thought we were going to be having a skunk or something.
I would have been happy with a Dalmatian or
So
It should have been a puffin.
For those small businesses that are kind of tuning in, and every time I mention something like a panda or a penguin to clients, I usually get it's got to the stage where the eyes roll now, and I think they're fed up of hearing these updates, and there's a lot of bumpy roads for clients. But do you want to give or you or Amon, or just give a bit of insight as to what Google Pigeon is, how it basically it's an update that really affected local SEO, and do you want to just give a bit of a background to it, Bill?
Sure. Okay. So in 2009, I was working with a client who ran a hospice in Florida, and I'd been working with them for about 3 weeks, and they contacted me and thanked me for getting to rank number 4 already for the term hospice, which is a fairly broad term. and probably should have taken more work than 3 weeks worth of what I had done at that point. So I looked in Google to see it at number 4, and it wasn't there. But a hospice that was local to me was. And it's like, okay, so I changed my location in Google so that I was in the county that this Florida hospice was at. And there they were at number 4. Now, at that point, Google was, for some reason, showing some of their updates in blog posts and letting us in. You know, one day they showed us like 50 new ones. So Google updates a lot. This one was nicknamed the Venice Update, and it was created by a new team of search engineers who had an office in Venice, California. And this was last year, but it was a lot like the update that I recognized from 2009. And I found a patent that was pretty close, and I actually provided a link to that in our comments section, saying that's the old version of the patent, and a new version came out on June 25th. That it's the same description, but different claims. So it had additional claims added to it, and an additional inventor, Navneet Panda, who the Panda update at Google was named after. And he had added some additional things like one thing that appeared to be a quota. If there weren't enough searches in Google Maps for a business, it would get removed from all results for everybody. So they only wanted to show businesses that people were searching for. So there have been reports that a lot less businesses are showing up in Google Local, and a lot less 7-packs of search results, and some of those have been reduced down to 2-packs or 3-packs instead. Did they add a quota? We can't tell yet, but it looks like this is happening all over the U.S. at the very least. I'm not sure if it's gone outside the U.S. yet, but it seems like if you're in Texas or if you're in Rhode Island, it's happening. Any of those locations, as if they're doing real-time machine learning. I discussed this with Mike Blumenthal, who does a lot of local search stuff and is often referred to as Professor Maps within the SEO community, and he thought it was pretty interesting too. And maybe what's going on. Google may be working on a geolocation statistical map of all their different business locations, and deciding that some don't get searched enough to actually show people. So,
Amon, have you got any thoughts on it, on the so-called Pigeon update? I know that from my own analysis, we've been probably analyzed about 1,000 sites and different queries, and again, only US though, not done anything. I'd like to get Barry's kind of thoughts about the UK, but seems that a lot of local directory sites have kind of had some benefit as well. So I don't know. Have you got any other thoughts on it, Amon?
The major thing seemed to be that authority had been dialed up into local, so that some of the same sort of ways that broad results are generated was happening a lot more in local, which meant that sites with larger authority, which is a lot of those directories, the Yelps, were immediately coming right up into Google Local, just as they had been into the main search for quite a while. So that came along just before everyone was really talking about Pigeon. So I think we may actually be looking at 2 or 3 different updates to local that aren't necessarily all of one thing. I mean, to Google, it's all the same thing. It's improving local results. But I think we've got a danger in a way of trying to look at this and say, right, what one thing have they changed that's doing all of this? One thing. It's 4 or 5 different things. And what I'm seeing is not clear enough to look like it's any one thing. So certainly I would say that authority has been dialed up. I think there may also have been, as Bill was talking about, an element where something that didn't have enough trust was dialed down to the point where it virtually disappears. So a thing that didn't really have much presence or any of those supporting signals was vanishing completely, which is a separate part. And I don't think it's finished yet. I think this is still something that Google are paying a lot of attention to, looking for user feedback and still playing with the dials quite a lot. So I think we've got another month or 2 with noticeable fluctuations, and then it will calm down to the kind of level of normal SERP where Google are updating something every single day of the week. You know, they've released figures of how many updates they do in a year, and there's more updates in a year than there are days in the year. So on any given day, there's at least 1 new thing, and often 2 or 3. You know, I think we're going to see that becoming the norm in local, where there's small changes that we barely notice. But for another month, yeah, I think we're going to see the dials being played with.
Yeah, just for those small businesses that, you know, don't have a local SEO strategy or don't even know what local SEO is, it is, you know, quite a bit different than SEO per se. I mean, it's all kind of search marketing, but at the end of the day, you don't have a local SEO strategy. Try to do some reading around it, and, you know, contact a consultant, or, you know, try to look at some forums about it, because if you're not doing anything from a local SEO perspective, you need to start that. Now, again, just from my own analysis, it was you know,
jump back in our archives as well.
Sorry?
Jump back in our archives as well. There is an ISOOSiChat all about local. There's an hour of good information in there that would make a good start for anybody.
Exactly. We had Darren Shaw and Mike Blumenthal on a great hangout all about local SEO. There was a blog post the other day. I don't know if I can't remember where I saw it, but somebody had done some similar analysis to what we've been doing, and they had noticed it heavily. You know, these directory sites and Yelp coming back up a lot more visible. You know, for restaurants and things that, you know, you would see a lot of reviews for. But other things like for mortgage brokers or dentists with some kind of geographic specification weren't, you know, those SERPs hadn't really changed as much. But for restaurants and other things, you know, there was a big change. So, Barry, have you seen anything to do with this update over there, over yonder?
Over yonder, over the pond. It's always the same that, you know, the changes come out in America first, and the .com, and then the UK is kind of sort of the next market to be hit. We've seen a few changes, but not as much as if you're doing testing within the UK, within the US.
Yeah.
I'm with.
After you, sorry.
Again, I'm with that. You know, I think that.
I don't know if you cut out there. You seem to be cutting out, Barry, or is it? Look it up. Doc, you got anything on Pigeon?
Not really. You know, I think, you know, for what Ammon was saying a few minutes ago, with 500 plus updates a year, I think that's very much by design. They realize that, you know, when they do something major, and when you see another Venice roll out, the impact is tremendous, and the panic that it generates is tremendous, and it just creates more noise. So I think that it makes sense from their standpoint to want to spread them out, and perhaps particularly spread out things that they expect to have more of a heavy impact, so that it kind of flattens the line of the fluctuation. The dance is not nearly as pronounced as it used to be. And I think that's also accented somewhat by the fact that they seem to be turning off a lot of their triggers just before updates.
Mm-hmm.
And then after they've come in and supposedly stabilized, they'll turn those back on. That makes sense because they're trying to monitor something that may or may not be very volatile, and until they actually unleash it, sometimes they don't know. They may get results that, beyond what they had expected. So, the Pigeon, I do think that we're going to continue to see some fluctuation over the next few weeks. 2, 3, 4 weeks. I don't think it's going to be 2 or 3 months. I hope not. I would expect that if it goes 2 months, we're probably into something else rather than Pigeon. But I think the days of seeing a sudden cliff, unless you've been walking on the dark side, the days of seeing a sudden cliff for a site that has its nose clean are pretty much behind us.
Yeah, just want to thank Tony Dimmock for posting, and William. There's a few other people posting some helpful links and to our old HOAs, our old hangouts on local. Tony's posted something here, in terms of what Google's working on in the UK. So anybody that's watching this on the YouTube side, make sure you look at the event page and see some of the links that some of the audience are posting. Just before we leave this, again, some of the websites that we've seen go to, like local restaurants in, there was some of the analysis that we did. There was like local restaurants near, near Philly, the ones that we were looking at, and they'd been kind of kicked off the first page in preference to these directories, and Yelp's always been obviously there. But now some of these other directories and restaurant, niche directories and local directories are kind of kicking off some of the local businesses, and that's kind of why I'm saying, you might have been getting traffic for your little local restaurant, for your page there, and now you're not on the first page. If you're not playing in those, if you're not getting listed in those directories, then you're gonna definitely see some hit to your traffic. So. If there's nothing else on that.
I have one quick statement about it, and that's if Google is doing this on a large scale, and they're letting users determine what gets selected, and the more actual searchers choose things, it may be that in some areas the Yelp type sites tend to get clicked on more. In other areas, the local restaurant type sites get clicked on more. So Google may be showing more Yelp results and more in one area, and more local restaurant results in another area. One of the things that struck me as really odd about this was so many statements by so many people that seem to contradict each other. And if it's more of a user-based decision as to what stays and what goes, what shows up as a local result and so on, that would make a lot of sense.
I don't want to kind of go into too much detail about private conversations, but I know from private conversations I've had with folks at Google, John Mueller and Matt, Yelp is one of those sites that they really, Barry, I don't just 1 minute, getting a lot of feedback there, but yeah, Yelp. I know things have happened recently that some issues happen with Yelp results. But I know from conversations that I've had with them, with folks at Google, that Yelp is one of those sites that they really like, and I'm not saying that they favor, but there's a lot of quality information in there and user-generated information, and it's just something that they see as a helpful thing on the web, and they've always said we want the web to be something and search to be something that helps users. Yelp is a I know people have got different views on it. Barry, is that your microphone that just sounded like a foghorn?
Don't think so.
No. It must be me just getting some feedback. But yeah, it's. I know people have got different views on Yelp, and there's been discussions in the past about corruption of Yelpers and things like this. But it does serve a good purpose for for folks on the web.
Yeah, one of the things with Yelp is that it's a rounded result. You've got, whatever business they were looking for, well, there's all the information about that business. You've then got reviews. Not all businesses have bothered to put reviews on their site. If you've got a local business, it really can help you to have that rounded kind of approach to it. So make sure you have got feedback, you've got reviews in there, you've got an idea of what's on your menu if you're a restaurant, all of those things, not just a one-page holding page. And Yelp is often a deeper result. And not only that, if you happen to be closed, oh look, you can quickly find some other alternate restaurants that tend to do the same sort of cuisine. So that's why for Google sometimes Yelp is a very good result, and it may even be better than the site itself.
Yep.
It can be one of those things where if you're a restaurant, be connected to your community. Understand that there's times you're going to be closed and things like that. Why not have a timer on your site that at certain hours it will display information about where else you could eat?
I can envision search engineers making those arguments to each other, with one preferring Yelp type results for the reasons you just suggested, and another saying, no, we want people to go to the actual restaurants. So I see that happening at the Googleplex or Venice or wherever they're making decisions about this particular algorithm now.
Yeah.
And in support of that, I would also remind everybody that Yelp is great for your analog business as well, for your offline stuff. I've got a major builder client in the San Francisco Bay Area who is #1 rated in his niche on Yelp, and he sees a significant amount of business coming in through there. So it's for Google's standpoint, not just Google, for the search engine standpoint and for your offline client base, it's definitely worth pursuing.
Has he been noticing any fluctuations in the amount of traffic he's getting from Yelp?
From Yelp, he has not made any indication that he's seen any changes. No, we haven't asked that specific question, so I can't say for sure. But I would think he would have commented, and he hasn't. We're doing so many other things to his site that I'm sure I know he's seeing rises, but trying to pinpoint exactly what's causing each one is difficult to say.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, I'm still on mute. Okie dokie. So we've had enough of the pigeon. We've killed the pigeon for today. Let's talk about Panda not Panda. Sorry, I'm trying to get my animals confused. Let's talk about Penguin and the lack of it. There's been a lot of, I posted something there on the event page. There's been articles on CNBC and other places, none of which I was a fan of reading, but there was a few people been and murmurings about, has Google lost control of their spam algo? Everybody was expecting it in, was it May? It was May or June, I can't remember the date, but everybody was having bets on what date it was going to be, and the 6-month time frame came up. I think we're at something like 9 months now, aren't we, or 10 months? Mm-hmm. And there's been no Penguin. We have pretty clued up clients that are asking us that we got manual penalties lifted from. We got a bunch of clients that we helped get the manual penalties lifted, and they still have Penguin issues, and they're asking us, when's it going to be coming? And obviously we say we have got no crystal ball, but they're wondering, is it going to be rolled in? And I know rolled into the main kind of algo that's constantly with us, if you will. I know none of us have got a crystal ball, but we were all talking about it in the green room before we went live. And some, Amon, do you want to talk about it? I know you were thinking that eventually that it will be part of the ongoing kind of continual algo, kind of like what Panda is.
I think there have been certain elements baked into the algorithm anyway, and certain improvements in the algorithm. You know, links have always been a core part of what Google's about, and policing them to an extent has always been in the algorithm. Penguin was really to do the extra bits, you know, to spot some of those real pocket networks that were going on and remove those from the calculations. If their algorithm has got better, they may not need as urgently to do the Penguin updates. So there is an element that they may get less frequent anyway, even before they get fully baked in.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to that, it's actually possible that they did run a very mild kind of Penguin at the time. We wouldn't necessarily know, and they wouldn't necessarily tell us. If it was a very minor one, sometimes they just like to see if anybody notices.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't say anything. There's a lot of updates. I'd say the majority go unannounced. It's only the tip of the iceberg that do really get talked about.
Like the hummingbird one, where they took over a month.
Yeah, they waited a month to tell anybody, and even that was one of the biggest updates since Caffeine. You know, this was a major structural update to Google. It was completely changing how their platform dealt with certain pieces of information. At least that's the level we were led to believe, because of the way they were talking about it as an infrastructure update kind of thing.
But you know, I think that another aspect that people need to remember is that Google is now using, to the extent that they're able, they're using machine learning algorithms. And those algorithms are going to improve their performance over time, which would supposedly make major updates less necessary. And one would hope that it's going to start to be pretty much a flat line. You know, as far as widespread notice of any update, you would expect that to almost disappear.
Yeah, I think there's a part of this anyway. You know, in that most of the time the algorithm is left to handle it, and every now and again they do a big, you know, run out of a Panda or a Penguin as touch-ups.
They're bringing the machete to back up the scalpel. or chainsaw in some instances. You know.
Or think of it as kind of like autopilot. You know, the algorithm is mostly running on autopilot quite happily, but every now and again they just double check and adjust course physically, and that's kind of where the Panda and Penguin algorithms live, in my mind, is that they're those course corrections.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes I get the sense that Google's running on more than one algorithm. We look at the entity stuff, and Google's shown that they can answer some of those complicated queries, like what movie does Christian Slater have a baboon heart in? And Google does searches on the knowledge base for movies, and then actors. Christian Slater's an actor, and then plot themes or known for devices, a baboon heart, and it says, oh, okay, in the knowledge base it's a movie called Untamed Heart, which is very different than a let's look for keywords type query. Let's look for pages that are ranked highly based on relevance and page rank. It's not doing that anymore. So with local search, to a degree, I think that's more a proof of concept example of how a knowledge base works. The fact that mentions of businesses with geographic information help them rank higher in local search, but have much less effect in organic search. So Google hasn't updated the toolbar PageRank in 9, 10, 11 months. Does that mean PageRank's dead? don't say I said that, because
You know that somebody's writing a post right now, Bill, that says that PageRank is dead, and Bill Slasky said so.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow. But yeah,
I
just
think
to
that
bring in the John Mueller did say last week. I think William Rockers also just mentioned it as well in the event stream. But I think it was on a Webmaster Office Hours hangout last week that I saw, or there was some mention by John Mueller from Google, that they are working on it. And so basically from what he said, it sounded to me that there hadn't been one. Obviously, we're all just you know, kind of eating what they give us, and we have to believe what they say. But basically, it sounded like there hadn't been a Penguin update, and they are working on one, and one is imminent. What's that?
Sorry, Carlos. I think that there's been a refresh. There's not been an update per se that we've been used to, and with the usual fanfare. But there has been something that, whether it's Mozcast or Rucast or whatever they're called, have tried to say with the sort of changes that they've seen within the SERPs. But certainly for a couple of clients that have been looking after who had algorithmic penalties rather than manual, with the right work that's been going on, there's been little changes in the last 6 weeks. Now, I think there's been some kind of testing by them in the lead up to the big update coming and the announcement coming. And given the actions that we were talking about in the green room that took place last week with the announcements of other link networks that have been targeted, that was a precursor the last time to the last announcement. So it all kind of ties in. There's been some kind of sort of testing going on, and I think what John's saying, something within the next short time frame. Don't have a crystal ball. If it did, I'd be predicting lottery numbers, not Penguin updates. But you know, there's something coming.
it makes you want to be a fly on the wall in one of those Google war rooms where they talk about how much they should tune up or dial down some of the algorithms they do. They did put one of those up on YouTube last year, and it was interesting to watch. But there are things like Mozcast, where it predicts how much of a fluctuation there's been in search results, maybe showing things that aren't actually implicating rankings have changed. And I'll give one quick example of that. It used to be when I searched for Space Needle hours, the first 8 search results were from spaceneedle.com. And after a while, people were complaining that there wasn't enough domain diversity in search results, and they're seeing the same sites too often. And after a month or two of that, you did that search for Space Needle hours again, and only the top 4 results were from spaceneedle.com. So the SERP had changed at least 40%, if not 60%, which is a tremendous amount of change. But it's maybe not that meaningful.
There's so much more analysis required, Bill. Like, you know this. I mean, after they had the domain diversity update and they had the EMD update, which meant that a lot of these SERPs changed 80%. And something that's tracking terms and trying to relate that to the big 2 black animals and not taking into equation all of these other changes, also taken in, as we've been talking about, with localization and personalization. It's, you know, to try and monitor a specific set of keywords to create a view of the SERPs and what's happening from a temperature type gauge.
Right.
You know, I'm not going so far as say it's completely flawed, but it's very tough to try and relay a true picture to what everybody is seeing.
Dr. Pete publishes something that says there was an 89% change in the SERPs this month. And it's like, what changed?
Well, I got a tremendous amount of respect for Pete.
Well, you know he's getting 2 million blind retweets.
But I just have to wonder, do they really have the wherewithal to pull a sample real time that gives a meaningful picture for Mousecast? That's asking a lot. It's a tremendous challenge.
And Search Metrics is doing the same type of thing with a very wide range of queries.
Yeah, I think what those are, those are useful to us as a flag that you might want to take a look. If I see Mousecast suddenly jumps up to an 88, believe me, I'm getting into my tools and I'm doing a look around. But I'm not calling my client and say, I bet you've been hammered, until I'm going to heed it as a flag and go do some investigation.
Yeah, it's kind of like the usefulness of a weatherman, right? You can look outside and see what the weather is. The weather may give you some prediction, but as marketers or search marketers, we know how to try to help protect clients by telling them that they shouldn't be focusing on if a client is wondering when the next penguin is coming, then they're kind of already in the trap of worrying about Google. They should be thinking about. We've talked about this on so many different hangouts now, about thinking bigger than Google, about the brand, and on so many different levels, on social as its own traffic channel, and everything else. And if you're already worrying about when Penguin may or may not come, you're already in their trap. Just my 2 cents.
I think that's the key thing for any businesses who are listening to this, is that there shouldn't be a reliance on Google as a single channel for driving all of the traffic, all of the awareness of their business. They need to diversify. And if they're not diversifying, if they're not thinking about the bigger brand picture, if they're not thinking about emerging traffic channels, and if they're sitting worrying about black and white furry animals coming along, they're in a very precarious position.
And by diversifying, we don't mean optimizing for Bing. Because that ain't going to help you. But, all right, I want to save a little bit of time for this whole SSL malarkey, the HTTPS. And I know there's been a number of people and good friends of ours that have been ranting. Our famous, good friend and rant master. Well, I won't mention any names, but there's been a few people that basically have said, don't go rushing out and move your website to, HTTPS secure version, and rightly so, because the reason that folks like Alan and other friends of ours have been saying it is because they care about webmasters and they care about businesses. And they don't want people just to go rush out and read something and then decide, okay, we need to have a HTTPS version of the website, because it can screw you up just as much as moving a domain. So it needs to be done the right way and by people who know, the consequences of the actions that they're going to do. So it needs to be done strategically and with thought, and you don't just go and do it yourself. So any small businesses out there that have read that having a secure version of the website on a HTTPS is going to give them some ranking benefit, and we'll come on to that in a minute about the ranking benefit and why Google has done this in a minute, but please do not go and just do it yourself. Let me just get that out there. And I'm not just saying, call ISOOSi. Whoever your web design agency is, or your marketing, or whoever you is helping manage your website, speak to them about it, and then don't even take that. If they say let's do it, please just do some reading and don't just go jumping out there to get a secure version of your website up there, because your traffic will tank.
Yep. Yeah.
Amon, Bill, do you want to touch on this HTTPS? No?
I'd love to jump on this. What Google has actually said, and this is specifically in that announcement about the ranking factor, is that it's in some searches, and they said it will affect about 1%. Now, We've traditionally always had the figure from Google and from other studies from search engines that transactional search is 10% of searching. So this is 10% of that 10%. If you run a blog, forget about HTTPS. If you have a site where you're putting up lots of video marketing, forget about HTTPS. You don't need it. It's not going to affect you. It is not a ranking factor for your site. This is about those money or your life kind of things. If you have a medical site and you're asking people to give a lot of information about their medical history, yes, you should have HTTPS. If you have a bank, definitely you should have secure layers going on. You know, if you're dealing with large sums of money or financial investments, if you're dealing with a lot of, you know, very detailed information about people's lives, that's when Google is going to count security for the user's data that's being transferred backwards and forwards as an important consideration, and therefore something to include in rankings. And outside of those situations, it's not.
And John Mueller was quoted on this one again very recently, saying that some pages for your site should be HTTPS and some pages don't have to be. So if you've got like an e-commerce website where you've got a section for people to order things and put in credit card numbers and so on, you want those pages to be HTTPS. The rest of your pages don't necessarily have to be.
Well, I may have been reading a different thread from John, but I read something that he posted yesterday, where there was basically, using the example of what Amon said, of the guy just, he basically was ranting on John's thread and said, "This is BS. Why should I've got just a blog? Why should I get an SSL?" And he was asking John if he had shares in one of the SSL providers, but it got a little bit heated. But John came back and said, "Well, don't you want the visitors to your website to know that what they're looking at is really your content and not a hacked, version or anything else?" And so basically, his argument was, everything from the way I read it, at least, was, if you really care about your visitors, even if you've got a blog, it would be better for making your users know that the content on there is legitimate. It would be better to have the SSL version.
Yeah, let's
I
look
think
at
that's all
one.
very well in the.
Sorry, Barry.
I was going to say, I think that's all very well in the Google utopia of wanting to make the world a safer and better place. But for the majority of the small businesses or the business who are watching this program, there's 101, probably 201 things that they could do that would have far more impact on those sites than jumping off and grabbing SSL. And the other thing that these people need to be aware of is that not only, like you said, Carlos, about the process that you've got to go through and how important it is when you're migrating across, you get what you pay for. I saw so many promoted tweets the other day after the Google announcement from companies who wanted to offer you SSL for $3.98. What do you think you're going to get for that? Be careful.
Yeah. Here's the thing I say. We are very critical of Google still about their move to hiding a lot of referral data, and that they've said that they're looking at ways of finally putting this back in, which they could have done in minutes at the time if they'd actually thought it was a priority. Why do we know Google's data is so bad? Because we can still get referral data from everywhere else. Now, the more Google encourage everybody else to block referral data as well, the more that we can't see how somebody came through their journey, because all we've got is a referral from this site and we may not know which page and all of that kind of stuff, the more Google looks good. And the less data sources you've got elsewhere, which sells more analytics. So, Google's got a vested interest here, and if they're saying that's accidental and they haven't seen this, well, maybe they're hiring the wrong smart people, because it's a little bit obvious to the rest of us.
I'd like to add something too. There is a tremendous amount of a tremendous lack of knowledge out there in the public about what SSL really means. And there's been so much talk about making the site secure, about making the internet more secure, that there's a lot of confusion. A lot of people think that their site will be secure if they have an SSL certificate. All the SSL does is secure the transmission of data between the site, from server to server, basically. It does not protect you against hacking. It does not protect you against any sort of what do you call it? Embedded links or whatever. That's not going to secure your site. It only protects. It encrypts data during transmission only. So don't fall into the trap of believing that you're going to have to do this or people won't trust your site. I dropped in here. I've got to go find our event page to share with everybody else. I dropped in here a link to a piece that Tim Nash published entitled "Guessing You Have SSL Questions." That is the best explanation I have seen anywhere of what you got to look at in terms of whether you even need to look at SSL, and if so, what you need to evaluate to make that selection. And I highly recommend anybody that has questions about SSL, and I think most of us do, including myself. Last week I had questions. There's a lot of good information there, and I highly encourage everybody to check it out because it's the most level-headed and thorough explanation of all the nuts and bolts of it that I've seen.
I just posted what you'd written there, doc on the event page for everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good stuff, but it's not going to make your site secure. And Tim makes that point in there. And there's a double handful of people out there that I have learned to pay strong attention to when they make any kind of a technical analysis of things. Tim is right up there close to the top of the list. So I highly recommend that you read that.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing SSL is really doing is it's part of the procedure necessary to encrypt the communication between the web server and your browser, which means that when you type in your credit card details, it's not sent as plain text, it's sent in an encrypted form. So if you were using somebody else's Wi-Fi, if you're connected through somebody else's network, they couldn't have a packet sniffer and just get that information straight out.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's all it's doing.
So for those people that either need the SSL or want to not, say there's some companies out there that kind of know what they're doing, or just for agencies, is there some best practices that we'd like to kind of tell folks in terms of the migration? Because in Google Webmaster Tools, there's no way right now. Again, this is something that John said that they're working on upgrading, but there is no way to kind of change a site from a non-HTTPS version to a HTTPS version, like you can do with a domain. You can kind of tell Google in the Google Webmaster Tools about you changing a domain name. That function for non-secure to secure is not there yet. But if you want to do it the right way, sorry, Ammon.
You can still use canonicalization.
Exactly, yeah. That's what I was just about to come on to. So if you want to do it the right way, and you want PageRank, to flow to the correct place and do it the right way, you need to be looking at canonicalization, like Ammon said. And if you don't know what that means, then you shouldn't be wanting to do the move. And also 301s, double up your efforts and do 301s and canonicalization. You can, double up and do both. Anybody else want to add anything else? I mean, that's pretty much what you would do. I don't think there's anything else there.
I think that covers it.
So, is there anything else in terms of Google, keeping up with the Googles that we haven't mentioned, Ammon?
I think, part of it is something we've said a few times, change is the norm. Change is happening every day. We expect change. It's part of it. The internet itself is still very new. It's still evolving. It's still changing. Go back 5 years, and the idea of realistic streaming TV over the internet still seemed absolutely ridiculous. Certainly 10 years ago, I'm not watching a pixelated little box, you know, wouldn't have been possible. So as the technology is changing, the internet is changing, and as the internet changes, so does a machine that has to try and understand it. Google has to keep changing, and to be honest, it's lagging behind because there's 1,000 developers out there doing 1,000 really interesting things, and Google is a lot of the time playing catch up, and then still having to look back at the ways that black hat types are misusing it and abusing it and building some safeguards as well. So change is the normal. It's all to be expected, and it's not done to annoy you, not even by Google. And you know, keeping up is just part of the job. It's part of the expenses you have to do, and if you have trouble keeping up, that's why you can hire SEO agencies and consultancies. You know, they are there to help you.
Anything else from the patent perspective, Bill? Any kind of new developments or anything? Sorry, I interrupted you as well. So
it's okay. There are always new developments. I was going to say about this, though, was that there are times when Google proposes and makes a change that are more of a carrot than a stick. When Google says if you switch your pages over to HTTPS to help protect people, we'll give you a ranking benefit. If you increase the page speed of your pages on your site, and you're faster than some of your competitors, and we can tell that by testing from both of them from different locations. People most likely want to see the faster site, especially if it's a lot faster, more than they want to see a really slow site. So we're going to increase how you rank in those situations. So there are times when Google makes changes not because they necessarily make your page more relevant for a topic, but instead because they think it's a better user experience overall.
Of course, that page speed carrot had a stick inside of it too. So.
I mean, that's one thing we got to always remember, that Google is it's their product and it's their service. Nobody, you know, if they want to rank things more highly and more preferentially than others, they have every right to. It's their product, it's their service. They want to rank things that people like. That's going to, you know, make their service better. So I think that sometimes it's just so big of an entity, Google, and it's just so, you know, ubiquitous. I mean, it's just, we tend to forget that it's a product, it's a service, and they want to keep it as good as it can be because they want it to always be the kind of default search engine for users.
Yeah, it's funny how we do have that different ethos, isn't it? You know, we'll happily buy a magazine or a paper, and it doesn't occur to us twice that, you know, the editor's given himself a full page at the front to talk about what's coming up in this issue, or, you know, he's given his favourite reporter 2 pages in the centre. It's their publication. That's what they're enabled to do. You know, right. They make sure there's good content in it to keep us reading, and then they use it as they want to promote their own agenda and to earn advertising dollars. And
yeah.
Why do we treat these two things so differently? Why do we insist that Google be like a resource that's given to us for nothing and forget about its ability to earn money?
I think if sometimes with the, I mean, you know, we've all had times when we've hated Google. We've sent people at Google emails that may be a little bit abrupt, at least that I have. But can you imagine? Can you imagine a Google without the spam team? Can you imagine a web where things weren't, you know, where, you know, Matt and John and all those folks weren't doing the job that they're doing? I think Google would look a heck of a lot worse, and we would really have a search engine that we all use every day that we weren't really happy with. So, you know, they definitely deserve a lot of credit I can't believe I'm saying this. Is it me? Is it me? Is somebody take it on my body? But at the end of the day, they do have to maintain the quality of their search engine and the links within it. So that's my
and make money for their shareholders.
Well, yeah, and that's a legal responsibility to do that. Google's got no choice at all, and I do think that those guys. Sometimes we are the poachers and they are the game wardens, and there's a healthy little adversary aspect to it. But they are the guys that stop the tragedy of the commons happening to Google. They're the guys that have stopped it going the same way as AltaVista, where it got so full of spam that the customers all walked away from it. And after that, it didn't matter how good you could get your position on AltaVista, because there was no actual genuine person ever using it to search because it was rubbish.
Which Yahoo learned a bit later when they...
And the other aspect of that is the fact that the level of control that Google has over our the future of our sites, we gave them that control.
Mm-hmm.
We did allow that beast to grow. So, we can't lay all the blame on their shoulders.
Exactly, and it's not really control. If somebody came out with a radically different search engine tomorrow, what's Google got left? If everyone moved tomorrow to try out this new wonderful search engine, what's Google actually got? It's got a lot of technology, and it's got a lot of war stories, but without that traffic, it's dead.
Mm-hmm. Is DuckDuckGo going to replace Google tomorrow?
No.
Yeah, probably not.
I kind of fear not.
Was there some murmurings about? I don't know. I posted that in the private chat area. I don't know. We were asked about the potential partnership. I don't know. Apple. Has there been something to do with Apple and DuckDuckGo this week?
I can't say that I've seen that.
Okay. I heard whispers about it, but I
Nor have I.
All right, I'm going to have to do some
I'll
research.
throw an interesting link in the comments later, but there was a guy looking at what was going to be the radical shift in search. And we all know that wearables is certainly something interesting. I think the biggest ripple we saw in Google's domination of search in the last 10 years was when Siri first came along. That made us think. It didn't get there, but it did make us all think, and it did show us what an alternative to Google could look like. And it wouldn't be another search engine, it would be a major shift. And a system. And I think the personal assistant, this is something all of the companies are looking at, they're all working on. I'll throw in a link later. But IBM and Watson are...
Well, you saw that Google acquired Emu this week.
Right.
So...
I looked up the trademark to find the name of the owners. I found one of the owners. He was already mentioned in a couple of the other articles, but I looked in the patent office to see if he'd published any patents, and he had. But he worked at Google for a few years, very recently.
Yeah.
So he's published some very recent patents at Google on very similar technologies. I'm not sure what's different between what he invented and what he published while still at Google.
It's a bit muddy, and he's also named in a couple of other Google patents from a while back, Bill. So there's definitely some crossover there that needs further investigation.
Mm-hmm. Emu was founded in 2012. So there are a couple patents that are like 2011, 2012, and then there are a couple that are 2013, 2014, with one of them being filed like 4 or 5 months ago and already granted. Mm-hmm. No indication of what the new or unique or whatever learning algorithm is that he supposedly came up with. Google now has a predictive algorithm in it already. Siri, according to the patent, is incredible. and maybe it's a lot closer to the Siri you see on TV than the Siri you see in real life. Because Siri can book you tickets for the movie theater, make you a reservation for the restaurant after telling you what the wait time is, book your travel, your plane flights, your hotel rooms, make sure you get the right size hotel room, all the rest of it. It's the patent itself is over 100 pages long.
Yeah.
It doesn't work in Scotland.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way in the U.S. either.
So the Microsoft has just launched what's it called, Cortana?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cortana.
It sounds like a Ford Cortina from years ago. My granddad used to have a Ford Cortina. But Cortana, it's meant. I mean, I've only played with it a little bit, and it seems a heck of a lot more accurate and powerful than Siri. Mm-hmm. But you know, that's probably for another hangout. You know, we could probably do one just on personal assistants in a few weeks. But Amon, who we got on the hangout next week? What are we discussing next week?
Won't we be doing some case studies next week?
No, it's the lifestyle. I was kind of throwing out there.
Oh, the lifestyle one next week. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So that's looking at this big change that's been going through the industry, and it affects everybody, because while you may not have a lifestyle business, most companies are going to lose people to the lifestyle business. You know, you've got a guy who's been working with you for ages, and it used to be that you'd worry about maybe he'd go to another job for more money, and you know, you had the option: do I pay him more to keep him, or do I let him go and bring somebody else in? But now you could actually lose him to a job that's offering less, but working for himself or having this wonderful lifestyle. And it's something all companies have had to adjust. You can't miss how Moz has put a big emphasis on the lifestyle within the office. You know, you've got the free drinks and the free snacks, you've got this fun environment, you've got the paid time off and all of those kind of things. And this is partly because the biggest rival to your staff now is the staff themselves, working for themselves. So that's kind of something we're going to be looking at.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So we've got that to look forward to next week, and then we're going to be starting a new thing where we kind of do a case study of a website, and we'll rip a website apart. I think we're going to either choose one that is a potential client of ours, and we'll be looking at it from from an SEO perspective, and we'll try to do that once a month, maybe the last Tuesday in every month or something like that. But thank you to all the panel today. Amon, as usual, Amon Johns, Barry Moran, Bill Slawski, and Doc Sheldon. Thanks to all of you guys for jumping on today, and thanks to all the audience for tuning in again, and we'll see you again next week, next Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.